I had to cut it off early just so y'all can see the moves that my man George was displaying in the background. How's it going, George?
Oh, it's going absolutely fantastic. It's Friday, Friday afternoon. Life is good. Everything is going fantastic. I am slowly recovering from a terrible fight with the cold. So can't complain, to be honest. It's going pretty good.
Yeah, I get to see those moves every single week, so I kind of felt a little bit selfish by not sharing it to the rest of the world. So,
Ah,
all right,
all
so
you gotta do is
this
ask.
is
I'll get my little shimmy on. All you gotta do is ask.
so this is TGIF. This is a Toylist and Titles podcast network production, and we are here for the Friday night uh, injury updates, and it's like practically literally up to the minute because I was watching the Fantasy Doctors update their list as I was waiting on George to enter the stream here. So very updated. And what I like about this week, it's not so much about who we're going to be missing. Like, yeah, there's some injuries, there's some missing, but what I really like is I noticed that there's quite a few players that we're actually starting to get back that are fantasy
Yep.
relevant as well. So that's always much better than dealing with who's out. So before we get started, I want to remind everybody, for one, Oscar Duarte, my man Oscar, was the winner of the Yeti cooler giveaway. There it is. Vote for Frank was the 3 word phrase for the giveaway. And Oscar, nice work. You got all 3 words. You got the entire phrase. You emailed it to us. You're a subscriber. You did all the things, and now all of our Patreons have another opportunity to win yet another prize just for being a Patreon. Okay. So this time you don't have to do a whole lot of other stuff. The only other thing you have to do is you got to be live and in the chat so that we know that you're in there in the YouTube chat. If you drop a comment in the YouTube chat while we're live on Tuesday nights on the flagship show, we'll draw one of your names out at random for a Yeti tumbler because we're going to give away a Yeti tumbler to 4 different people throughout the month of December. So and again, I said it the other night on a show. I gotta say, Will, our guy Will, who's been doing a lot of our graphics and has taken over the social media stuff. Why not just reach out to Yeti? Obviously, we love their products. Reach out to Yeti. Tell them that they need to sponsor the show. But George, do you have one of those Yeti tumblers?
I do. My best friend, my brother, he got me one. It's got a nice engraving of an American flag on it. It's blue. I should have brought it so I could put it on display, but I didn't. It's in the bedroom, but I do have one, and they are absolutely fantastic.
Right on, right on. So, yeah, you didn't know I was going to be bringing it up, but so the other thing I want to push real quick, just because this is the holiday season, guys and gals out there, you are buying apparel for yourselves for Christmas. You're buying apparel for loved ones for Christmas, and you can see this logo right here. That logo stands for homage or homage, homage. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but I know that they make
Homage.
really awesome material. I wore my homage Jonathan Taylor T-shirt just in honor of today being that he is unfortunately on this injury list that we're going to be talking about today. But all you have to do is go to our website, toylistandtitles.com, and click on the homage link that's in there. It pops up like an advertisement. If you click on there, it'll take you to homage. You can look through. They've got more than just sports apparel too. They've got bands and plenty of other stuff. But look through, find yourself a T-shirt or something that you like, a hoodie. They've got some awesome material there. You click on it, you purchase it, and you're going to give a little kickback to us too for the support. So, but anyhow, I think I've delayed us enough. Let's get into the injury report. George, let's start with you with the quarterbacks, if you would. It's kind of a short list, so if you just want to rock through the quarterbacks, then I'll pick up with the running backs.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with the new ones to the list. Jake Browning from the Cincinnati Bengals is dealing with a right wrist throwing injury. There's really no concerns. They do expect him to play. DTR, Dorian Thompson Robinson for Cleveland, is dealing with a concussion. He has actually been ruled officially out. And Joe Flacco, Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco, from the 1960s, is
Yep.
going to be starting for the Browns this week, which I actually kind of like. I think he's probably going to be better than DTR anyway. CJ Stroud is dealing with a right ankle injury. He played through it, so they expect him to play, but he's been added to the list. Baker Mayfield also dealing with an ankle injury, some right ankle sprain. Kind of awaiting some more details, but they expect him to play. Will Levis also dealing with an ankle injury. They said it's likely a mild to moderate lateral sprain. Excuse me. It affects his mobility. Will Levis is not exactly a mobile quarterback to begin with, so there's no real impact there. The 100% they expect him to play. Aaron Rodgers, I wanted to talk about him a little bit. Coming back from his
Woo!
Achilles, they've opened up.
I
They've
knew you'd
opened.
want to talk about him. That's why I gave you the quarterbacks.
They've opened up his 21-day window. Don't get your hopes up that you see him this year. Just because the window's open, don't mean that they're actually going to bring him back. If they do bring him back, listen, I'm not expecting him to be very good. He's not somebody you're going to be wanting to start in a one quarterback league, especially during your playoffs. Like, it's for fantasy purposes, his season is pretty much done. Um, but they do expect him to return by week 16. God bless you if you want to trust Aaron Rodgers making basically his season debut, because he only played 4 games week one, or 4 snaps week one. If you
Yeah.
want to trust him in your fantasy playoffs in your semifinal round, God bless you. But in my eyes, personally, for all purposes for his fantasy value, he's absolutely done. Kenny Pickett is dealing with an ankle injury. It's a minor ankle injury. There's no real concerns. Geno Smith played last night, looked fantastic. I'm not concerned about his elbow. Lamar Jackson dealing with an ankle injury. He's on a bye, so it is what it is. He's on a bye. It's no big deal. Matthew Stafford still dealing with his right thumb injury. Uh, he's going to play. Jalen Hurts rather, dealing with a knee injury. He's going to play. Tyrod Taylor's got some ribs. He's on short-term IR. He's not. Let's Tyrod Taylor. Nobody's trusting him at this point in their
Yeah.
fantasy season anyway. So no point in talking much about Tyrod Taylor. So that's it for the quarterbacks. There was 12 of the 32 showing up on the Fantasy Doctors injury report.
Yeah, no. So we don't need to talk about Tyrod Taylor, but there is a Taylor that I'm going to start with the running backs. It's my man Jonathan Taylor. Unfortunately, he's out. What they're looking to say is around 2 to 5 weeks at this point. He's definitely going to be out this week with that right thumb injury. He had surgery on it this week. So initially, it was thought that this could be a season-ending thing, and then Jim Irsay came out. Excuse me, that one came up. It snuck up on me. Jim Irsay came out and said that he feels like this is just going to be a couple of weeks and then he can potentially come back. Jim Irsay is always that way. He's always extremely uber aggressively optimistic about injuries to his player when he really just needs to shut up and let the team doctors and the people that are paid to address the media. But I have a short out there from last week, or earlier this week, pretty much the day that the news came out about the surgery. If you would go back to YouTube and check out our shorts and watch that short. But initially, my biggest concern here is that Jonathan Taylor's a lot like Justin Jefferson. He's going to worry about himself first because he can't help the team if he comes back after 2 weeks and he's somewhat healthy and ready and then he re-injures it. He can't help the team anymore into the playoffs. Justin Jefferson's doing it the right
team.
way.
He needs to get out there.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately,
he can help
that's
my
the
fantasy
audience
team. He needs to get out there.
Right, exactly. That's the audience I'm speaking to, right? So, but here's the good thing though. Without Jonathan Taylor, if it's your fantasy team and you had Zach Moss before Jonathan Taylor came back, you had a lot of effective fantasy points with Zach Moss because he gets a lot more of the carries. With Jonathan Taylor, obviously he's a better running back, but Zach Moss was still stealing some of those carries. It still equals out to about the same by only starting Zach Moss because whoever the other guys aren't getting the carries that Zach Moss was getting when JT was starting. So it still kind of equals out. Just hopefully you held on to Zach Moss if you have Jonathan Taylor. Hopefully you listened to the waiver wire episodes the last 2 weeks if you're a Patreon. And I kept telling you that if you have guys like the workhorse guys like a Jonathan Taylor or like a CMC or like an Austin Eckler or any of those guys that are workhorse guys, right now, since all these bye weeks are slowly getting out of the way, as you no longer need the roster spots, you should be filling those roster spots with those players' backups just for this reason. Hopefully you listen to me. Hopefully you all have Zach Moss and you're all going to be fine. I'm spending way too much time on Jonathan Taylor because he's my guy. I'm a Colts guy, but I got to get this episode wrapped up and get it to the people. So I'm going to run through the rest of them that are out. We got Aaron Jones is out. We already knew that Kenneth Walker was out. Donta Foreman is going to be out again this week. He's been on again, off again all season, just like most Bears running backs. Let's see. The Saquon Barkley, there's no real concern about that tweaked right high ankle sprain, but we have to mention it because it's Saquon Barkley, and you just know it's there, and you're always concerned. But in this case, they're not too concerned, and after the bye week this week, he should be fine. Now, as far as the guys that are injured, we've got and when I say in, I'm talking like it's 100%. They've already announced it earlier today. I'm only going to rattle off the main names, guys that you may be starting. It's Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams. You got Kareem Hunt. Who that one is one I was a little concerned about because it's a groin strain, but evidently he's good to go. Devon Achane. So I'm gonna spend a little bit of time on Achane. Actually, you know what? He's your guy. I'll let you spend a little time on Devon Achane as the Miami guy.
Yeah, so he returned to practice this week. He could have played last week. One thing I've noticed with Coach McDaniel and these players that get injuries, he tends to hold them out an extra week just as a precautionary. And he doesn't do that with just the skill position players. Like he does that with his offensive line. He does that with his defensive line. He does it with the linebackers, the cornerbacks, the safeties. Like he is right now super, super cautious in bringing these guys back right away from injury. So Devon Achane, he could have played last week. He said I could have played last week. It was a coaching decision to hold him out one more week. There's absolutely no rush in bringing him back. Raheem Mostert has been absolutely stellar for you all season long. They're pretty deep at the position with Jeff Wilson, but they're bringing back Devon Achane. It's a good matchup against the Washington Commanders this week. I don't really foresee the knee being an issue going forward. The fantasy doctor says there's a moderate re-injury risk, but as of right now, he's completely good to go. No concerns putting him right back into your lineup.
And then with Aaron Jones out for Green Bay, A.J. Dillon is in with a groin strain, though. So obviously groins and hamstrings and all that soft tissue stuff is a little scary. But for now, A.J. Dillon is in. It doesn't show that they have any kind of concern of a re-injury at this point. So hopefully he's good to go. But he should have a big week this week considering that Jones is out. Derrick Henry is in, and I can see Derrick Henry having a big game because we have there was another back there for Tennessee I'm spacing it. Tyjae Spears is he was in concussion protocol, and the reason I'm spacing is because he's not even on this list anymore. So I knew he was going to be back in. I knew he had cleared concussion protocol, and he was going to be back in. But I would like to think that with it being a concussion and Spears is already just a backup, they're going to try to at least only use him when they absolutely need to. So I'm going to look for Derrick Henry to have one of his few really big games this week because he hasn't had a lot of them this year because Spears has been taking several carries or receptions from him throughout the season, on again, off again. Let's see. DeAndre Swift is in. Rashad White is in. Jerome Ford is in. Khalil Herbert is back and in, and he played last week, and he's starting to look better and better. At this point, it says there's still about a 30% dip in production for the next week or two is what the fantasy doctors are projecting. But considering what we said earlier about Donta Foreman being out, there's a chance that he may not have any choice but to continue to get more carries. Maybe we see Roshan Johnson get a little bit more work this week as well. But I see Khalil
Not
Herbert finally starting to come back.
well. I believe the Bears are on a bye this week.
Oh, well, that helps even more. It didn't say bye on here, so they must have
Yeah,
forgot to update
no,
that part.
they must have
That
because
makes sense.
I could use some Bears players in my lineup this week, but I don't. They're not available.
And you are correct because I remembered I have DJ Moore in a couple leagues where he's on bye, but and that makes sense because we had three really good teams and then we had three teams like the Bears that were all on bye this week.
Yep,
Um,
exactly.
all right, tell me about the guys that are definitely in. Only the guys that you're probably starting in your fantasy lineups, but the wide receivers that are definitely in, George.
Well, let me start with the ones that are out, and then I'll let you do the ones that are in. How's that?
Oh, okay,
So we have
sounds great.
four. It sounds
See,
fantastic.
this is why you're the doctor and I'm the nurse. I tried to say something and then you say no, you're an idiot, and you push me off to the side.
That's not what
Meanwhile,
I said.
after you're done, I'm going to come in and clean up after your mess, and I'll fix everything like the nurses do.
Exactly. So we have four guys that are decisions. Chris Olave, he's in the concussion protocol. Most he's going to clear the concussion protocol. He practiced in full today, which is a very good sign that he'll be playing this weekend. And Lord knows the Saints could definitely use him because
Yes.
otherwise they're throwing to me and Justin this weekend.
Which, by the
Also,
way,
Keenan
uh,
Allen for
just real quick, since you're on Olave, we have we have a new short that we just dropped this week from our man Pete that's been filling in on
yep.
title time for you guys a lot here lately. So he dropped a short about the other options to look for should Olave not be able to go this week.
Yeah, me and you were like number 4 and 5 on his list. It was absolutely awesome. Check out that short. Um, Keenan
I
Allen
disagree with
for
him
the
though. He should have had you 4 and me 5. He had it backward.
maybe he's seen that clip of me running and been like, "Yeah, nope, Justin's going ahead of this guy." Um,
All right, all right. I digress.
I
Let's go.
move so I move so fast I go in reverse. Keenan Allen for the for the Chargers is dealing with a quad injury. He's a game time decision. He's likely to play, but he's going to have some limitations. Jaden Reed for the Green Bay Packers is dealing with it's likely a bruised rib. He will play, but just be cautious of it. There's going to be some concerns. Um, Chris Godwin for the Tampa Bay Bucks is dealing with both a knee and an elbow injury. Minor injuries, not concerning, but they've got him listed right now as a game time decision. Uh, One of my favorite wide receivers on the year. I did a short on him earlier in the year. Told everybody pick him up, put him in your lineup, and he's absolutely been fantastic for you. Douglas for the New
Yeah.
England Patriots. He's dealing with the concussion. He's in the protocol. He's not playing this. Um, Raheed Shaheed. We talked about the New Orleans Saints needing wide receivers. Me right now have our agent currently in negotiation for game checks. So if we can get the things ironed out, you know, maybe me and Justin will be in an NFL game this weekend. But he's dealing with a thigh injury. It's most likely a quad strain. He's going to be out a week or two. Jerry Jeudy from the Denver Broncos is dealing with a groin. It's most likely a strain. He's 50-50 to play. He's newly added to the list here. I think he'll play, but they've got him as a 50-50 right now. Michael Wilson for the Arizona Cardinals. He re-injured his shoulder. There's no real new details, but he is definitely out. Treylon Burks is still in the concussion protocol. He's at risk at this point of going on IR for the season. Like we talked about concussions a lot last year. We've talked about it a lot this year. Not every concussion is still is the same. You can see guys like Chris Olave who suffered a concussion at this last weekend, and they expect him to play this week. And then you got a guy like Treylon Burks who's been in the concussion protocol now for a few weeks, and he's at risk of going on IR. Like just because it's a concussion, these things are not the same for every individual athlete. The recovery time it definitely varies. The grades are are highly significant, and they're not something that these guys should be playing with. So just beware Traylon Burks. He hasn't really been much of a fantasy impact on the year, but he is somebody that is most likely going on IR. Justin Jefferson, they expect him to come back from his hamstring injury. They're on bye this weekend, and so next weekend he'll be back. The team's already announced. And the last couple ones that are absolutely going to be out, Michael Thomas, he's on IR with the MCL sprain, potentially it's a grade 2. He's not eligible to return until week 16. And Mecole Hardman is dealing with a thumb injury. He's on short-term IR as well. They're not sure if it's a UCL tear in the thumb or if it's a fracture, but he's 100% out. Justin, other than that, all these other guys are in. Why don't you talk about
So real quick, I want to mention something because somebody brought up Traquan Smith. I don't know if you all remember him or not, but he was a depth player at wide receiver for the Saints that got a lot of run in the
it? Yep.
past. And somebody today saw Pete's short, and they sent me a DM on Gilded, which, by the way, you can join our Gilded chat. Plenty of people are on there. We got over 200 people that are chatting in there on a regular basis. And as I just said, people are sending us DMs and asking us questions about what we think of this. I get start and sit questions all the time. But anyhow, somebody asked me whatever happened with Traquan Smith, because when they realized that all these injuries were happening to the wide receivers, they went and dug up and looked for him, and he wasn't on their depth chart. Well, I did a little research, and it looks like he is currently on the Denver Broncos practice squad right now. He's not even on their depth chart because he's not an active player for them. So, with him being on the practice squad, there is always that chance that they could sign the Saints could go back and sign him
Yep.
from Denver's practice squad if they wanted to, and they have somebody that automatically can come right in and play in that offense. So that's something to consider, because when he did get an opportunity to play, he had a few moments to shine. So if you're really desperate at
Yep.
wide receiver, that could be, and you got an extra roster spot, especially in like your deep dynasty leagues, that could be a sneaky little add-on at the last minute. But it's kind of like I kind of feel the same way about Zach Ertz, although I'm going to be getting to the tight ends in a little bit. But with Zach Ertz, he requested to be cut, and they did. They waived Zach Ertz from Arizona. I kind of thought maybe that was because of the Dallas Goedert injury. Maybe he was going to be out a couple weeks longer than they thought, and he was going to go back and sign with his old team. But now it looks like Goedert is back at practice this week. Still doesn't mean he's not going to be out for a couple more weeks, but yeah, it's just those little things like that, those little news clips that maybe you miss or that you didn't see. Like you got to constantly be searching if you want those deeper guys that could really make a deep impact. Because Zach Ertz is not hurt. It was an injury that usually keeps people out for 2 or 3 weeks, and for whatever reason, he was out for 6 weeks, 7 weeks now, and he finally just said,
Yep.
"Geez, if you're not going to play me, cut me." So just pay attention to those injuries. If they're lasting longer than they really should, then usually there's something else to it. But back to your point, the guys that are in at wide receiver that we're not worried about, that you might be starting on your starting lineup, or definitely starting is Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Tank Dell, Quentin Johnston, who with Keenan, as George said, Keenan has some limitations this week. Maybe Quentin Johnston gets a few more snaps. Unfortunately, he hasn't done much with the snaps that he has gotten. Amari Cooper is in. Jerry Jeudy in. Cooper Kupp, Rashee Rice, T. Higgins, Noah Brown, C.D. Lamb we saw played last night and played pretty incredibly, if I might add. Puka is in. Let's see. DK Metcalf had an incredible game last night. Marquise Brown, A.J. Brown, which I believe I already said up top, so they need to fix that. Tyler Lockett played last night. Nico Collins is in. Josh Downs is in. And that's it for the wide receivers. George, I'm just going to go ahead and rattle off the tight ends and be done with it.
Go for it.
Yeah,
There's only
Trey
7 of them.
McBride. They did say that there's a 25% re-injury risk on Trey McBride with his groin strain, but he is in. So even the fantasy doctors said, screw the 25% chance, start him, because he's been that good for them. Dallas Goedert, like I said earlier, he is back at practice. But they're still kind of looking to him to possibly not return until maybe week 14. And it said week 13 to week 14 for the last 2 weeks now. So the fantasy doctors are kind of right on track if you're really paying attention. If he's back to work, back to practice this week, there's a good chance that it's next week, week 14, that he's back. So these guys are super smart. They know these injuries. They know what they're doing. Hayden Hurst is out. Dalton Schultz is out. TJ Hawkinson and Darren Waller are both on bye. Waller's still on that short-term IR. They haven't lifted the sanctions yet, as I like to say sometimes. But TJ Hawkinson will obviously now. TJ Hawkinson's injury. This is something that I noticed before. Like 2 weeks ago, they said when the fantasy doctors said that you're going to see a drop in production. Well, that very week, because he was playing with those bruised ribs, that very week, suddenly Josh Oliver comes in and steals a touchdown from Hawkinson, gets a few other big key catches, really cost you your some of your fantasy points there from Hawk, even though he still had a decent game, just not good by Hawk standards. Well, the next week we still saw a little bit of Oliver, but we saw a little bit of more of Hawk. And they said after the bye week, Hawk should be Hawk. So they're right on schedule again. Amazing. I'm telling you guys, you need to listen to the fantasy doctors, follow them on Twitter. They know what they're talking about. But the big one here, and the guy that we're just super excited that he's okay with a lacerated kidney, is Luke Musgrave.
Really?
Guys, we didn't get to record last week because, Thanksgiving, we had a lot of family stuff, and, turkey always takes precedence. So we didn't really record last week, but Luke Musgrave had a lacerated kidney the week before. He is on the short-term IR for now, but they're still saying, the fantasy doctors are saying, there's still a chance this could be season-ending. And I'll be honest with you, Luke Musgrave is a really promising tight end. He has a real opportunity to be something in the league. If I'm the Packers, I am not wasting it. I don't know why they even have him on short term. I would just stamp that IR on him. They're not going to make the playoffs. Just let the man heal, which they probably already had that in their mind anyway. Maybe, who knows why they make the decisions they make, but hopefully they don't bring him back and they just let him heal up and we can continue to watch him grow. But that's it.
Let me ask you one question, Justin.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of lacerated kidneys, didn't Keenan Allen have a lacerated kidney at one point?
Yes, he did actually.
I believe he did. Yeah, and they shut him down for the year. So I would not be surprised if they ultimately end up shutting down Luke Musgrave with this lacerated kidney. Like you said, they're not really playing for anything. The playoffs are really not. They're not officially eliminated from the playoffs, but there's a pretty good chance they're not going to make the playoffs. So there's no real point in putting him in. It's not even at risk for like the football team. Like right now that's secondary, but like there's no point in putting that man's life at risk. Let him completely heal from this lacerated kidney. Come back next year and run it back. But they're really not playing for much at this point right now. So I think ultimately they will shut him down.
Yep. Yeah. And the only other one that I remember had anything similar to that, I know there were several others that had a ruptured spleen, but I remember Chris Sims had a ruptured spleen. And I'm not saying that ended his career because he wasn't really that good before the ruptured spleen, but he was out for the rest of the season also. And we never really heard much from him after that. I know he held on to a couple of teams. He was practice squad, backup, that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, I think that's it, George, unless I'm missing something. If you got anything else.
No, I don't have none. So I real quick, I just Googled lacerated kidneys NFL players. Eagles safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he suffered a lacerated kidney in November of 2022, and that shut him down for the rest of the year. Excuse me. It's really not a very common injury for anybody to suffer. It's just a freak accident. It is what it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was depressing to talk about, to end on a lacerated kidney fact, but it is just like George said, it is what it is, right? So yep. we're gonna move on, but we thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget, tune in on Sunday morning for the Sunday morning start sit show with George and Jason, and it looks like we're gonna have.
We're gonna
Pete
have Pete.
filling in for Rich for the rest of the season. At this point, you know what, guys, I can announce it now. I was able to get 2 really awesome pug puppies for my wife for Christmas today. So that earns me some brownie points for a while. So there's a pretty good chance that I might be on Sunday morning as well
Ooh,
for
mom's
title
coming
time.
on title time. Mom's coming on title time.
Maybe I can even get the new pug some screen time because they've got some pretty awesome names. But I'm going to hold off on the names for now. Stay tuned for title time on Sunday morning, and maybe you'll get the names then. But yeah, that's it. So for George, at George Reed FF, and for myself at Justin FF_, we thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your time, and we're probably going to have we're definitely going to do this one more week. I don't know
Yep.
if we're going to continue after that. We'll just kind of wait and see what the numbers are doing, and see if any of you kick in and say that you want another episode, or maybe we'll just tell you where to go to ask your questions. We'll figure that out between now and next week. But for now,
If hey,
yeah,
Justin, real quick, if we decide not to do another episode, if you join the Gilded chat, like we could give you the updates. That's all you gotta do.
yeah,
You can still
yeah,
get the information. Just join our Gilded chat. It's absolutely free. We'll get you in there. It's a great community,
yep.
and you can get the information there.
But at the very least, we'll still do it next week because I know that's
Yeah.
like the last week of the regular season for most leagues.
Yep.
And we also know you can't get enough of George's face. So
No.
y'all have a great weekend. Enjoy your week 13, and good luck to y'all.